Welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette, featuring sysadmin expert Don Pizzette, DevOps engineer Justin Dennison, security specialist Daniel Lowry, and Peter.
Hello and welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette, but Don Pizzette's not here this week, but we're gonna do all right without him. We've still got Justin Dennison here. Justin, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm not in my little room, but I'm missing my fan. I just noticed right before we started, so I'm hoping I'm not glistening with sweat, but maybe I need it.
No, it stays nice and cool in this room. We're in the same room, but we're across. We're a good 20 feet from each other, so safety first. But it's nice and cool in this room. And Daniel, you doing all right over there in your little den?
I can't complain, thanks.
Oh, good. Glad to have you. All right. And it's a good thing you're here because we have some security stuff to talk about. We actually have the one and only Alex Kirk with it. Well, I shouldn't say one and only because I looked on LinkedIn to get his profile, and there was a lot of Alex Kirks, so it took me a minute. But we've got one of the top Alex Kirks available today with us. How you doing, Alex?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. And we originally met you, was it B-Sides Tampa? But you're not down in Tampa, are you?
No, I'm out of Atlanta, but I had been covering the 7-state Southeast, so doing the B-Sides tour in that region.
Sounds good. Well, let's get to know a little bit more about you. You work for Corelight, and it's a great place, and we want to learn all about that. So let's just jump right in with our first segment, rapid fire questions.
Who do you work for?
What's new?
Who are you?
What's happening?
What's wrong with you?
All right, Alex, we have 5 minutes to get through these rapid-fire questions. You're going to have 45 seconds to a minute to answer them. If you go over time, Peter's going to buzz you, and we're going to move on. And Peter's going to take our first question.
All right.
Yeah, I am. All right, so we're kind of looking this month at how people got started in IT and helping people along that journey. So I'm just curious for you, I looked, like I said, I found your LinkedIn finally and was able to look back at your history. So how did you get into IT? Where'd you start, and how'd you get to where you are today?
So my father actually fell into being a programmer in the 1980s, and so I always grew up around computers. We had the TRS-80 Model 3 at the house back in the day, and I always did it as kind of a hobby. Thought I was going to end up being a professional journalist, and then realized in 1999 that, hey, I was good with computers, and this .com thing was probably going to be something, and I was paying more a year to go to school than the average starting salary was for a journalist in this country. So made my way into web work for a little while and progressed into security over time as I realized that I didn't want to be one of those guys who got their website owned and was distributing malware out to the public.
Well, speaking of all that fun times, you're currently at Corelight. You've had this nice little journey. Can you tell us a little bit about Corelight? What do they do? What is their proposition, so to speak?
So Corelight has been based around the commercialization of the open source security project, formerly known as Bro, now known as Zeek. That was actually funded by the National Science Foundation for 20 years. Congress got it as one of their greatest hits in a hearing a couple of years back. But when that grant money finally ran out, they decided to sell enterprise services and appliances around it. And we are now taking a step forward into the detection market and adding some new capabilities around IDS and other things to come that I'll talk about a little further in the current ventures piece.
That's pretty cool. I got a chance to see you guys present in B-Sides down in Tampa. It was really great, so we appreciate that time and effort. Now, this is a pretty crowded market when you talk about network monitoring or just monitoring in general. So asking for a friend, how does Corelight separate itself from the pack? What makes it special in that industry?
So really the underlying technology is an industry standard. It's taught in SANS courses and Cisco certifications and has really been the gold standard for being able to get everything that has happened on your network in a reasonable metadata style format so that you can have kind of that complete evidentiary log of everything that's occurred, but only coming at about 1% the size of packet capture. The folks at Berkeley, for example, where it came out of, have 20 years worth of these logs laying around. And so it's our ability to really correlate all that data and bring it into a place where analysts can quickly go through and understand exactly what happened and respond to things like IDS alerts considerably faster than they would without all that surrounding context.
So I'm curious. We've talked to a couple of people in the last couple of months when we've been dealing with the COVID-19 issues. Have you seen any change in the way people are using your product or the types of attacks that are out there? How has this affected your industry?
So the attackers haven't really changed tactics too much. Of course, there's plenty of news-related spam where they're trying to get you as a COVID-19 lure to go hit a phishing site or an exploit kit. But where it's really made a difference is in the distribution of employees and their networks. Instead of having a big central office to go monitor, a lot of folks are now at their houses, and maybe they're coming in through a VPN and you can get them at a choke point there. But if it's a split tunnel and they talk to the internet, then you'll have really no visibility unless there's, some piece of software that you can bring into a home network to do the level of monitoring you're used to at the enterprise scale.
So follow-up question, what do I do if I did click on one of those emails asking about the testing online and I filled out, to just burn my computer now?
You're asking for a friend again?
Yeah. Daniel's same friend.
Go free your credit, sure. But, also, make sure that, I guess, all the patches are installed on all of your operating systems and pieces of software, because a lot of the time you click that link, you get that nasty page. If you're up to date, nothing's actually going to succeed, and the attacker is going to move on to the next softer underbellied kind of client.
Like I haven't been clicking wait until tomorrow for the last 2 years.
I thought you were going to say like I don't have a soft underbelly. So real quick, we got 5 seconds.
Yeah, go.
What was the impetus for changing the name from Bro to Zeke? Do you know?
So the whole bro culture and the issues of sexism in the industry were a bit much for the folks at Berkeley that this project came out of. And so they decided to avoid that connotation and move on to something slightly more politically correct.
See, I'm just waiting for Brother Printers to follow suit. Those guys.
That was good. It was funny.
Thanks. Those are good jokes too. And people are like, that's a funny joke. I'm not going to laugh.
I'm going to write that down. Hold on. Can we take a break? I got to write this down.
I got to put a helmet on for those kind of things. Man, you got to warn them, brother.
Sorry about that. All right, well, let's go ahead and while we have a security expert here on the show with us, get to our next segment and look at who got pwned this week.
Looks like you're about to get pwned.
Fatality.
Yeah!
All right, so I was actually browsing on the sysadmin subreddit on Reddit and saw some people talking about this, and then I went and found this article. So we got an article from Engadget here. A cyber attack forces Honda to suspend global production for a day. The company detected a virus on internal servers in Tokyo. And they were saying on the sysadmin forums that they had to go to each server, and it took like 2 hours to put the patches on or fix whatever they needed to fix on that. And that's kind of why they were just like, hey, everybody go home. We can't be working anymore. But Daniel, do you know kind of what kind of attack this was that we were dealing with?
No, the only thing the article explains is that it was a virus of some sort that targeted their servers, and that it discovered it on Monday, I believe.
So I take it out. It's not a client.
That's it. That's all it says.
Yeah.
So the link behind it came from the Financial Times. It didn't. It gave us a paywall there.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
The Independent over in the UK was actually claiming that it was a ransomware family that had hit their internal boxes. And they've apparently had ransomware issues in the past, so it wouldn't be particularly surprising if history was repeating itself.
And you'd assume in a case like this that someone as big as Honda has, backups and offsite and things segmented. But I guess, I don't know that process. Even if you're hit with a ransomware attack, I mean, it still takes you a lot of time to go back and restore from that. So is that kind of why that might have been the case where they send people home for the day?
Well, absolutely, because you've got a lot of scoping to do to understand exactly how far that piece of malware spread inside your network. You've got to make sure that you know what pieces of the backups to be restoring. You've got to, also be clear that once you've got those boxes that were hit cleaned off, that they're all the way cleaned off and that they're not continuing to beacon out or otherwise cause problems that might result in a further flare up of the malware within the network.
Yeah,
So Honda has a bunch of Peters saying, "Wait till tomorrow." Is that what we've surmised from this? It's like, yeah, just hold on, I'll get to it tomorrow, and boom, we got to quit making Civics. Yeah, that's. But I mean, as far as malware targets, this seems like they got a chunk of change. So I mean,
well, if they have the backups, though, I mean, you're not necessarily they're not paying probably.
yeah, but the thing is like think about all
Well,
the
yeah.
high-profile companies that you're like, of course they have great IT practices, and then they're like, well, actually we don't.
We regret to inform you.
My bad. We're full of a bunch of Peters.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is just to assume that a company is competent at security because they're large is an absolute fallacy. I've worked with a number of brand name companies over my decade plus in security, and some of them do a really good job, and some of them do a really terrible job. And
Sony.
the question, kind of how they fall on that scale and how they're going to deal with the disaster recovery from a network perspective.
Yeah, there was an update, looks like today, from a Honda spokesman that says, they experienced an attack and it affected production. However, there's no current evidence of loss of PII. So they lost all the non-personal identifiable information probably. What's interesting, it says it actually affected not just internal servers, but things on their inspection lines and stuff like that. So, I mean, I guess that's the issue now when you have these factories that are, completely digital robotic things along the line is, it's not just affecting the financials and things like that. We're shutting down the whole assembly line because of something like this. So that's a little scary.
I would think in that industry that would just be like a safety precaution, just because you don't know what the malware is going to do. So you would hate for someone to get hurt because the malware, even inadvertently, did something to the machines.
Like, yeah, I guess it could make it onto the car,
Right.
with so much software in the cars these days.
Right.
What does
I mean, it's unlike given the architectural differences in the car software and hardware versus what you have on a standard internal server somewhere. But what could be happening is there's just enough convergence between the production networks and the IT networks that you had a system that resided on that production network get popped and was causing problems. Just doing it, scanning and other tricks inside, even if they weren't necessarily successful, and that would be enough to, shut down what is often a very fragile IT infrastructure for SCADA and manufacturing sort of setups. I've seen things fall over just by being telnetted too. So you'd be shocked at how easy it is to knock over a manufacturing line.
Does Honda have like a financial services like their own? Like Toyota has their own bank, like they
so.
can do their. Like I go buy a Toyota, I can finance with Toyota. Is that true for Honda?
I think they do. I'm because they're they have a few brands and obviously outside of not even just outside of cars, but a few car brands. So yeah.
I was just wondering because it said not much PII, but then if it was inside of manufacturing facilities, would that just be employees, or do they keep records for transactions? They wouldn't keep those together,
Purchase the
right?
vehicle. I wouldn't think so, but
But that's why I was asking if they had like a financial services.
yeah. I'm assuming they keep those things pretty separate. But as Alex said, making assumptions about an organization just because of how high profile they are, how much money they have, is not necessarily a good thing. But hopefully they get everything worked out there, and we'll follow up. Normally on a situation like this, we get some more details in the coming weeks of what actual attack this was, as they're able to. Kind of get out of triage mode and get into reporting some of that back. So we'll definitely look for that. Hey, Alex, I know, obviously we talked a minute ago that before we started the show that you guys don't have the normal trade show schedule and things going on, but you actually are doing some virtual kind of things. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the most exciting thing we're doing right now is our Capture the Flag exercise, which is more of a blue team than a red team capture the flag like you would think about traditionally. But the idea is it's a 2-hour session open to the public every Tuesday and Thursday, where you have to go in and use our data to answer a series of questions about what happened to machines that were compromised, hit with a piece of malware, how did they spread internally, what was the command and control like, all the kinds of things that you would expect to have to do in a real network security analytics role with live data using tools like Splunk and Elastic. So that's definitely something that we've had a lot of positive feedback on, and is a lot of fun to do because it's straightforward enough that even people who aren't really into network security can get through, at least the basic round of questions. We've got sales folks that have made it through, so it can't be that hard. But there's enough meat to it on the far end that people who actually are in the industry can really get down into the weeds of some of the more complicated questions and have some fun along the way. With, of course, a scoreboard, and we're giving away Amazon gift cards and all that good sort of stuff too. So it's a little bit of competition to go along with your learning.
All right, well, I challenge you, Daniel.
Well, if sales can get, obviously marketing can get in there, Peter. You should get over there.
Marketing's like smarter salespeople.
Yeah.
Basically, so I'm in.
Oh, man. What? Yeah, I'm getting a call. Yeah, this is going to be bad. We got to stay in the podcast for a hot minute.
And then you also mentioned you're rolling out a Raspberry Pi version of your product?
Yeah, exactly. So we've got a software sensor version of the product that's designed to be deployed just as an application on top of a Linux operating system so that you could put it into, whatever branch office or other remote site might not have the full infrastructure to demand a hardware appliance. And so that is something that is a little bit less of a public sign up. You'd actually have to contact somebody at Corelight and ask for one. But given that, folks are having a hard time playing with things on corporate networks right now because they can't even get into the building, we wanted to give people an opportunity to see what was going on and use our technology on their home network, and be able to notice things like their, Samsung Smart TV talking DNS out to South Korea or whatever other strange IoT things may be running around people's houses these days.
So we were talking last week about the new, what was it, the 8 gig?
Yeah, the 8 gigabyte Raspberry.
So maybe this is a reason to go ahead and get that one. We can monitor our network a little bit faster. And is it at that did 64-bit? Was that right?
Yeah, that also came with a 64-bit operating system.
Yeah, but we don't need that for this, do we?
Well, you would need to install something like a Raspbian or whatever other Linux runs on top of the Raspberry Pi. But honestly, we can get you guys loaded up with an SD card that has everything ready to rock on it. So you can just plug it in, point your data export to somewhere where you can actually capture logs and then be able to see that complete record of everything that's happening on the network.
That's very cool. Yeah, and that's neat about the capture the flag too. It's I know, like as they've joked, being on the marketing side, everyone's scrambling to figure out new ways to engage with people. So that's definitely a cool one because it's not just good practice, but it's a lot of fun too. So maybe we will go and play with that a little bit, and I'll put it to the test.
And the one other thing that I want to mention that's exciting for Corelight right now is for anybody who is familiar with the Suricata IDS project. It's an open source, similar to Snort kind of a technology. We're actually going to be announcing that as available, integrated with Zeek on our appliances as of next week. And that's distinct from something like a Security Onion that's been running those two open source products side by side in that they're actually very deeply integrated. There's a UID in the Zeek logs that ties all the different protocols together that's been expanded into Suricata alerts. So it's very simple to take an IDS alert now and have a single pivot point into that record of all the network data that gives you the backup to be able to figure out whether or not something is a false positive, or you really need to raise a red flag and go turn it into an incident.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, breaking news right here on TechNado. I pretend that we were the first person that you told. Don't ruin it for me. Yeah. But hopefully, I don't know, maybe we'll see you at B-Sides again next year if that's a thing and we're allowed out of our houses.
Sure. I'm supposed to be speaking at Orlando B-Sides in November. We'll see how the coronavirus situation is by then.
Sounds good. Yeah, we definitely might have a presence at that as well. So thanks so much for taking the time with us today and joining us.
Absolutely. Been a pleasure.
And stay tuned, everybody. We got a little bit more TechNado coming up right after this break.
An IT team that's upskilled and ready for any challenge. How do you get there? Join thousands of other IT leaders and let IT Pro TV be your resource. With more than 4,000 hours of IT training, IT Pro TV gives your team a resource to go to. The most popular vendors: CompTIA, Microsoft, Cisco, Linux, Apple, AWS, and more. The hottest tech, cloud, security, networking, and more. What's next for your organization? Whether it's an implementation, cloud migration, more workstation support, or new technology, you're covered. With IT Pro TV, you can rest easy. Your team will always be ready. It's binge-worthy learning for IT pros. Get a free trial for your team today. Visit www.itpro.tv/business.
All right, welcome back to TechNado with Don Pizzette. Without Don Pizzette this week, thank you to Alex Kirk for joining us there. And we're going to go ahead and jump to the news, and hopefully, I mean, last time Don wasn't on the show, we were talking Scrooge McDuck and the logistics of him diving into gold for a good 45 minutes. So we'll see how long this stays on the rails without the one adult figure.
So what I heard is, are y'all ready for some fun?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So we're just going to watch episodes of Thundercats for 30
I
minutes.
don't know how that works with copyright. If we can just, if maybe
How about we
we're
watch
without
it and we
them
kind
hearing
of
it.
play by play?
Yeah.
Yeah, because then does that count as a derived work?
I think it does.
Oh yeah, it's satire.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
All right. Well, our first article is over at threatpost.com. FTC slams children's app developer for COPA violations. I can't remember what is COPA. The Children's.
Online Privacy and Protection Act, I think. something
That's
like
right. So were they just all kinds of vaping ads to kids? Is that the problem?
So they were apparently, without the knowledge of the parent or the child, were collecting data about children users that were inside of applications that were obviously meant for children. They had, silly animals, used words like silly and things of that nature, apps that were geared toward kids, and they were collecting their basically their personal information, anything they could.
Like that Camel cigarette mascot?
And I want to say, if I remember reading the article correctly, it wasn't necessarily a Hyperbeards app. It was the ads within the app. So they were like, well,
Oh, but they're still responsible for
they're
it.
responsible, right? Because it's their app that is the vehicle.
Oh, yeah. It says the ad networks in
Right.
question, Ad Colony, Ad Mob, App Lovin', et cetera, et cetera. So,
Yeah. When your company's called AdMob, I mean, that's a red flag right there, I think.
Vungle, Tapcore, Iron Source. I'm not making these words up. Fiber with a Y.
Yeah. App Lovin'. App Lovin'.
That's a character in Superbad, I think.
Yeah.
Right? So I saw this article and I was pretty happy to see that the FTC was busting them over this kind of stuff, because the fact that we're being monitored, here I'm a security guy, right? Like, you get wicked paranoid and you think, man, that Alexa over there, I'm gonna smash it with a hammer. I'm gonna turn off everything. Actually, I did look up on my phone because I know my phone listens to me like all the time, right? And I'm sick of it trying to advertise to me whenever I talk about some random subject. And next thing you know, I'm getting ads about it. You can get, I noticed this, I plugged it into my car auxiliary the other day, and then I hollered at it to do something for me, and it didn't hear me. So I'm like, maybe it's just too loud in here. So I yelled it louder, and it just ignored me. I pulled that cable out, and it heard me fine. I was like, oh, this cable had 3 prongs on it. So you can actually go and buy little plugins for your,
Like disable the mic.
yeah, and it'll disable the microphone. It's because it's looking for an external mic at that point and shuts off the internal mic. So that's a nice little $10, $15 purchase that'll help keep these kind of things from happening. But
Also
of course,
put a little Phillips head down there, and then with a hammer.
and just smash.
Yeah.
I've always said, good way to shut it off. Throw it on the floor hard as you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Or to try to bring it back on. I hear that dipping it in a lake also is effective ways to shut off the
yeah.
mic.
Yeah, that will shut that mic right off.
This is one of those this whole COPA thing. Whenever I've built applications or someone's asked me, "Hey, how do you build this?" I go, "Yeah." So I've had many times people were like, "Oh, I'm going to build this ad for kids," or this. I'm like,
Nope.
nah. There's a lot of That's hard. You ever notice like, are you under 13? Yes or no? That type thing. But I would suspect you'd be surprised how many like websites and stuff probably don't do this well as well. It just so happens that maybe this is the starting point of others going, hey, we might get fined. We should probably figure this out.
And I absolutely hope that's the case. That was the point of the article for me, was like, stop, think, and don't just let the drive for profits. Don't get me wrong. I'm a capitalist. I believe in people being able to make a living and make profits and stuff, but not at the expense of people's privacy and.
Yeah, you're like, but I'm also a father.
Right. I am.
I know.
I am a
yeah.
father. Yeah.
A few times over.
Yeah. You're like, what is that kid watching over there?
Well, that's what I worry about. I've got a 12-year-old daughter, and I worry about the games that she plays sometimes, not because of the game itself, but it's because of the ads. Because, well, shoot, I remember when she was like 4 years old and had her mom's phone, and she accidentally booked a week-long diving vacation, and it's serious, dead serious, because it was on like I think it was Living Social or one of those like the Groupon kind of things where all of a sudden like you got the email confirming it.
Oh, yeah.
And we were like, hold up.
No, Peter's like, so we were in the Caymans, and I'm like, man, I can't believe you did this.
Yeah, I don't know how you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's the ads that are scary because they don't, at that age or younger, they don't understand the difference between what's trying to manipulate you and what you actually have to do and click on.
I think it should be illegal for like children's applications. So if it is something where you have to put COPA things in, like, are you under 13? I think it should be illegal to put in-app purchases like inside the actual application. Maybe there's an area that's for parents. Like if you like this game, maybe your kids will like these games or these things. And here's ways for us to make money. I get they're trying to make money, but my kid doesn't know at 5 years old not to click on an advertisement. And then, like you said, next thing I know, I'm in the Cayman scuba diving.
I wonder if you could even, I mean, it would be more overhead, so people making money be like, no, create like a secondary management dashboard for the parents, like a parent portal, right, for a lot of other kids' apps. And that has to be required. So you go, Mom, I need more Candy Crush coins or whatever that is. And they go, well, I'll buy it for you. Click. And then those accounts are linked. I could get on board with that.
Yeah, just a little something to keep them, because even because they have such small hands and everything, and they're trying to hold onto the device, they can accidentally click on stuff, and it's, of course, they're right on the edges. A lot of those advertisements are right on the edges of the screen.
And they suck at reading.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
not great at it,
they're
honestly.
doing. Yeah.
Honestly, you drive a good point there.
Reading's dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. So this next article is from Ars Technica.
Very good.
Thank you. I've been
Dumb.
organized.
Dumb.
Yeah.
Super dumb.
This bot hunts software bugs for the Pentagon. Champion of the 2016 DARPA contest at DEF CON, now Mayhem gets used by the military. That is pretty cool. You go and win a prize like that, and they go, yeah, you work for us now.
I mean, they got that government money. They got that military money. I'd probably go with it.
They had some stiff competition. They weren't the only ones to, like, vie for that product. Other nation states were after it as well.
I'll be honest with you. I had a really petty reason for putting this article in the queue. This is my article. I got distracted by the first couple of paragraphs where it found a bug in Cloudflare's like image processing.
Oh yeah.
And it was like crashing their image pre-processing routine. And they were like, we would have never found that. And all it did was like throw up a bunch of like black and gray pixelated squares. And they were like, well, can we see that? They're like, no. And I was like, well, why couldn't you see the image? How would I know what's going on with the image? But from what I read in the article,
it a QR code? I mean, that's what it sounds like. A bunch of.
Oh man, that's Cloudflare's bank account. Maybe it was. But then it goes on to talk about other parts of, like, Mayhem has become part of Cloudflare's standard security suite. But the goal is to help. Mayhem was created to help individuals identify software bugs faster, so you could fix them faster. And from what I can tell, it is a very complicated fuzzer. But I could be completely wrong about that. So don't quote me. I got distracted by, it crashed the image pre-processing part. But, maybe we need to let it loose and see what's making those sounds. I see Peter looking around. He's like, what is going on?
Hey, for once, that's not me. I think that's the computer that is showing the article there that's making some noise.
Yeah, it happens. It's not entirely clear. I didn't do additional research on like Mayhem, but
in your defense, reading is dumb.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it kind of deviates in the article. So it talks about Mayhem, then it talks about the contract, then it talks about fuzzing a little bit, just in general, because it's not even talking about Mayhem, from what I can tell.
Can you give me that term a little bit? I hadn't heard that.
So fuzzing, I just start throwing garbage at you and see what happens. And then if I'm really good at it, I can construct like pointed like data and go, well, if I give it this, what happens? Oh, it crashes. Oh, that's cool. So it's just I'm running through input to try.
So it's different than a DDoS. It's not trying to crash it with just overwhelming amount of information. It's seeing if that like the specific information will cause something.
So either, and I say crash, but just have some weird anomalous behavior. So maybe I can construct it to where it takes a weird code path and it returns information that it shouldn't, like a database dump or I guess they could have found out. Did they find out Heartbleed with fuzzing, Daniel, or was that just somebody observing that?
I'm not 100% on that.
Like we don't know what all this data is. Do you want root access?
Yeah, I know that fuzzing is used like in the spaces that I work in is to, and basically you're trying to see if you can make an application crash. It's not necessarily like kind of like what Peter was talking about, not so that the application will crash. Cool, I can do that now, so I can create a denial of service attack, but ultimately it will lend to something like exploit development. So I've given it some input. It did not know what to do with said input, and therefore the computer crashed because it didn't know how to handle the error. That being the case, maybe I can leverage that to, this is where like buffer overflows, stack-based and whatnot come into play. So if I'm able to crash the program by giving it weird input or input that it doesn't expect, or too much input, then maybe I can get to an overflow situation and get remote code execution.
The fuzzing was the first technique. The second technique, and fuzzing, for those of you who aren't there, you just throw garbage at it and see what sticks. Or there's a different saying where I come from, but we're going to keep that off the podcast. The other one was symbolic execution, where it generates a mathematical representation of the target software and tries to surmise more complex issues that may arise by analyzing that mathematical model. And it said that has mostly been used in research labs, but that makes sense because Mayhem came out of Carnegie Mellon, which is a huge computer science research facility. So
they're smart.
Yeah, they are smart. But I got distracted by pretty pictures. Ultimately, it's always good to be able to track down software issues faster than the bad guys can.
Well, thank you for clarifying what fuzzing meant, because that means something totally different in the furry community. So.
Jeez.
I don't know
like,
if it does.
Man, it's never mind. Nope.
See, I'm just trying to bait Justin now. Like, Don's not here to stop you. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah.
Scrooge McDuck dressed up like a furry on a Thundercats episode.
That's actually my furry costume.
So, real quick, does that mean, would he still be a furry since he's a duck? If he dressed, like, what would he have to dress up
like?
Like?
You're saying if Scrooge McDuck? Well, first of all, dude's walking around without pants on.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I feel like he's
Around
already
children.
prepared for the convention.
Where's Copa when you need him, right?
Oh, man.
all right, let's go to our next article.
Hey, when you're rich, you get away with stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You can. That's what I've heard. Over at linux.slashdot.org, Brian Lunduke explains why Linux sucks in 2020. Hey, you had me at the title there, Brian. That could be because I don't know if I've ever actually
Used Linux?
Well, I can't say that because so much runs on it, like things that you don't think about. You're not using the Linux interface. But I don't know if I've ever used a mouse in Linux and Linuxed before. I'm not sure if it's a verb. So I'm not the best to say whether or not I agree or not. But all I hear normally is love for Linux, people that are loving on it. So can anybody agree with his take here?
So I'm going to be straight up. I accidentally overlooked this article and didn't get a chance to read it.
Perfect.
So apparently this is something that he does. Like, he's a prominent Linux user. He works in Linux, but
Is it satire?
It kinda. So the closest thing for me that resonated were these series of talks about JavaScript and just all the weird idiosyncrasies that crop up. And so he talks about, hey, yeah, it works. I do it. I make money doing it. But it kind of does have some raw edges, some kind of sharp corners. And, you got to love Slashdot. They give you this, chunk down piece, and you go, oh, okay. And then, boom.
Well, he's really mad about how long it took him to set up Railroad Tycoon 2 to run on Linux. So, it's not necessarily mission-critical stuff we're talking about here.
So here's the thing. if that's your main complaint,
Yeah.
Things are pretty good.
That's kind of like going, man, it took me a real long time to shoehorn that 454 Chevy into my Honda Civic. Number one, because Honda was down because they got hit with some malware. Number two,
Nice
they
call.
had no idea what I was doing. And you know what? Hondas, they suck.
Yeah. Honda's a big.
Well, and I think that's part of the thing here. You've got certain distros of Linux that are made for certain things, and so trying to do things that that game was created and not ever thought about being put on Linux originally. I'm sure when it was created, and then people say, "Oh, I wonder if you could," and yeah, technically we can, but you got to do X, Y, and Z. So, it's not the right process for things like that, but. I think part of this article too is just I don't want to say clickbait, but enticing headlines. This sucks is going to get people to go and read it, except for Daniel.
I must say, it really worked on me. I was like blind to it, honestly. I was like, what article are they talking about? Oh, there it is.
So I will tell you, I suspect Don would have a different perspective.
He
But
loves
guess
it,
what?
yeah.
He's not here. And when I read this article, everything that he points out is like this very specific use case that bothers him. And I get where he's coming from. Like, for instance, maintaining software on Linux is such a massive challenge now. We've heard about in recent TechNado episodes where we're getting rid of 32-bit libraries, they backtracked. But if you're a maintainer of software, like critical software, boom, you got to change that. And now it's like a second job. If this is free and open source software, you're probably not getting paid for that unless you're being paid by a company to maintain it. In addition to like Python 2 to Python 3, it's going to cause other maintenance issues. So I get his complaint there, but him getting upset that he wants to make sure he can run Civilization, Railroad Tycoon 2, and SimCity 3000 later on.
Who's got time to play video games?
Yeah.
Not him, because he's too busy
Yeah.
messing with Linux here. I don't know. All right. Well, we got to move on because I don't know if you can hear the rain, but I'm worried the ceiling's going to fall in at any moment.
It's pretty.
Oh, yeah. Where you're standing, Peter, it sounds like somebody's just hanging out there, like with a fire hose going, yeah, I'm going to get through in a minute. I get it.
Yeah, they're coming for me. So, all right. So our next article is over at zdnet.com. Linux Mint dumps Ubuntu Snap.
It's about time.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Get over it.
And now that we're done with that, what's our next one?
Well, I can at least read the subheadline here. The popular desktop Linux distribution, Linux Mint, wants nothing to do with Ubuntu's Snap software installation system. So I came to you guys before the show. It's like, hey, Don's not here. Are you guys going to help me out with this article? And you guys are like, I don't know. But then we actually had a little good conversation about it. So what were you saying, Daniel, about the reason they were getting rid of this?
Oh, so the reason they decided to dump it was they were saying that something to do with Chromium, that the Chromium browser is blank or it's not filled out, so the application will actually reach out to one of the repositories, a Snap repository or wherever it is, because I don't use Snap, I use apt like a real person, and then it downloads Chromium and installs it. But to do that, obviously you have to be running at administrative level so that you can install software. So it's doing things as root without your permission. It's just doing it, and it's designed to do it that way. So they didn't like that. I can't say as I blame them on that. I don't like things doing stuff without my permission.
So is this mostly a security-based move, we think?
It seems like, I think that's the impetus for it. And then it seemed like it moved to, you don't tell me what to do. And
Oh, so it's like a don't tread on me thing.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think that's right. Like, as far as it shouldn't be performing administrative functionality where it's kind of veiled and where you don't really know that that's going on. It should be alerting you to those things and having your input on it, whether you actually want to do that or not. And then after that, it's like, well, if you're going to take that step, then, piss on you. I just won't use you. So I don't trust you anymore. That's why.
This is one of those things where I have never used Snap as far as I know. I've always used apt-get or apt-install through Ubuntu or Linux Mint. Linux Mint is great if you have a user base that's used to like a Windows box and you want to get something pretty close and you don't want them to do crazy things. Hey, Dad, how are you doing today? But the fact that when I type sudo apt install, I'm expecting like a binary package to come down that's maintained by somebody to be put somewhere, and then it's vetted, and I know exactly what it does. If I want to, I can go look at it. is being circumvented by it's an empty package and it's pulling the old switcheroo. It's like the redirect, right? Oh, well, look over here, and then they're rifling through your pockets. And because that install requires elevator privileges, then that kind of gives them free reign. I mean, it is Google. I don't know. I think it was more about setting a precedent than it was necessarily this one individual thing. But I've never used Snap. I don't think Peter's used Snap.
It's going to be a hard no for me.
Yeah, I don't think Daniel's used Snap. Have you, Daniel?
That is a big negative.
I think Don hates it with a fiery passion.
So
I
there's
could be
no love
wrong.
loss
I'm
for
speaking
Snap
on
here.
Don's behalf. He's not here. But yeah, we've stretched out for 3 minutes.
Yep.
More than
Let's
Than
shoot
what the
Snap in
article's
back of the
title
head and
required.
bury it in a
Well, now
shallow grave.
this is a good moment though to see if Don actually goes back and listens
Yeah.
to the podcast. So we're going to say Don is a huge Snap fan and is super upset about this, and Don is all about Snap.
That's right.
matter of fact, he's got a petition started right as we speak.
That's
Yep.
right. He just wears a shirt of fingers snapping.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He like walks around like he's in West Side Story.
Yeah.
All right. Our final article for the day here is from developers.slashdot.org. IBM releases fully homomorphic encryption toolkit for iOS and Mac OS.
You're incredibly insensitive.
Yeah. I mean, it's 2020. Let's come on, guys. It took you this long.
And we all jest. We're probably going to get flamed for that, Jim.
Yeah.
But
It's your joke.
We're just having a little hot.
we're just having a little ha-ha. But a homomorphism is actually a mathematical relationship. And so what was really cool about this is homomorphic encryption. That's a pretty cool idea. Daniel and I were talking about it before the show. And effectively, if I have encrypted data and I want to, let's say it's like credit card transactions or medical records, and I want to do some kind of analysis on it, computation, then I have to decrypt that data, do the computation, and then re-encrypt that data if I have to make a change, right? Or I need to save the result. The problem is you have to decrypt that data, which is computationally expensive, and then you're going to be moving that data around or holding that data in an unencrypted form, which could be a problem. But with homomorphic encryption, I can more or less inject the computation into the encrypted data. And it goes, and then it hands me back an encrypted result that I can decrypt and go, well, there's the result. It's pretty interesting. If you go read about homomorphic encryption, you should be ready to dive in and get like a math degree. Because they're like, oh yeah, homomorphisms exist on the real numbers with plus and yeah. So I have a math degree, and I was like, oh yeah, I haven't done this in a hot minute. But the ultimate goal for this is to make it easy to build these tools for iOS and macOS. IBM, IBM, they brought Red Hat, right? That's the last time I saw IBM or heard about IBM, but I'm also not a great consumer of news.
Yeah,
like
I
our
see
names.
commercials for IBM, but I'm like, I don't even know what you're selling.
I know they own weather.com.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, you just said you have a math degree and you're also a developer. But if there's a regular developer out there, say, without a math degree, I see that this is available now on GitHub. I mean, to implement this, I don't need to really understand the underlying.
No, the whole purpose is to make this a little easier to develop these tools for iOS and macOS. I just got really excited about the math part. And
Yeah, because I'm building an app for kids.
Yeah.
And I want to make
so
sure.
it's funny. This would be great because you're always going to have that data encrypted. That does not mean you're compliant with COPA and or FERPA or any of those. Don't
still
take that away.
storing
Be
it.
like,
Yeah.
Justin Dennison said on the TechNado podcast, where he also talked about Scrooge McDuck, that I would be COPA compliant.
And reading's dumb.
And reading's dumb.
Yeah. All Justin Dennison quotes we can reuse and play.
Actually,
out of
that was my bad side. That's Dustin Jennison.
Yeah, that's right.
context. Your cousin.
Oh, old cousin.
He's a guy at a Hardee's you met one time.
Oh, bro. Yeah, I've told you that story, haven't I?
Yeah.
Peter?
What?
Oh, we got time. We got time
Yeah,
for
we
this
got
story.
You got a minute 53. Do it.
All right, this is totally nothing to do with homomorphic encryption.
Maybe.
So,
Maybe it is.
you ever Googled yourself and you go, wow, there's another Peter Van Rysdam. Mm-hmm. Well, there's another Justin Dennison. Just so happens I have like a distant cousin that's also named Justin Dennison, whose mother's first name is my mother's first name. So I go to Hardee's late one night in my early 20s. I'm with my girlfriend. I come from a small town. We used to go late at night, get breakfast from Hardee's. They started serving at 1 a.m. And I order. We pull up to the window, and I hand my card, my debit card. And the girl goes, "Why didn't you call me back yesterday?" And I was like, "I'm sorry." And she goes, "You're Justin Dennison, aren't you?" And I was like, "Uh-huh." She goes, "And your mother's name, blah, blah." I'm not going to say my mom's name. And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "You hung up on me and never called me back." Mind you, my girlfriend is in the seat next to me. I'm like, "Can I get my card back and my biscuits and gravy?" I swear I don't know what happened.
You don't want to eat those biscuits and gravy now.
Yes. So this girl starts boo-hoo crying. Well, come to find out, it was my cousin. Well, we had combined high school and middle schools. When I was in high school, they also called my mother to come pick him up because they looked up the wrong Justin Dennison in their student records. Oh man, I tell you what, it was some interesting times, but yeah, now that you say it, those biscuits and gravy, that didn't look like gravy. That was spit. I'm pretty sure that was spit.
Biscuits and spit.
That's right.
Yeah.
And hair.
Well, good job fitting that story right in the allotted time frame.
Yeah, I got excited about it. And homomorphic encryption right there at the end.
You know, if Megan's listening and she's the one that does the interview scheduling, let's see if we can get that other Justin Dennison on here
Justin's doppelganger.
one week and first of all find out why he didn't call her back.
This has been like 14 years ago.
I don't think so.
But
You
I
were
did
using a
see
debit
so
card at Hardee's.
He had
14 years ago.
fraternal twin brother, right? So that
Jeez,
they
so
actually
there's
didn't
really
look
three of
anything
you.
alike.
Yeah.
And I met him. He was working at a grocery store. I was like, "Hey, your brother's named Justin, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "Does he look anything like me?" And he goes, "No." I go, "All right, so you should tell him to stay away from Hardee's because there's a girl there that will get
got a
him
knife.
because he hung up on her."
He's got lots of knives, access to all of this.
Yeah.
Hey, want to let you know we've got a webinar coming up here very shortly next week, Thursday, June 18th. What IT certifications are right for you? Finding the right certs for your career goals. That's with Anthony Sequeira. It's taking place Thursday, June 18th at 2 p.m. You can head over to itpro.tv/webinars, find out all about that and sign up. You can also go there and get access to the video from last week that Justin did with Don. Is a career in IT right for you? 10 qualities of a successful IT pro. So you can check that out. That's now up in the archive along with, I don't know, probably near 50 other webinars from our past. So check those out, itpro.tv/webinars, and also head over to go.itpro.tv/technado, and that's where you can find a 30% off coupon code for your personal subscription. Lasts you the lifetime of that subscription. As long as you're with IT Pro TV, you get that same price. Even if anything changes, you're good. We've also got a form there that you can fill out to request a demo if you're part of a team and see all the cool things that come along with IT Pro TV for teams. That's over at go.itpro.tv/technado. And yeah, be sure to subscribe and share with your friends. Leave us a review and drop us a line, and we'll read it as long as it's not any more offensive than anything Justin has said today. I think
Whatever. You say offensive things as well.
I don't believe that's happened, but
Yeah, you roll the tape. Yeah, can we get the tape back there where Peter says all those things about? Oh, nope, can't say that.
have the feed. Yeah, it's just a beep. Just me talking for 5 minutes with the beep. No, but that was fun. I think we thought we were going to go off the rails, and it stayed more near the rails.
Yeah, we were closer to the rails than
anyone expected.
Yeah, including us.
Yeah.
Probably mostly us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
I mean, we had a good story in there a couple of times.
There's Don next to us on the video of the IT Pro TV website.
Yep. Well, anyway, Peter, let's
like
go.
he's here. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you back here next week, hopefully with Don, right here on TechNado with Don Pizzette. See you then.